If we've not had the pleasure to meet, I've been at UNC Charlotte for about 7 years and have been working in the Career Center all of that time, and absolutely love what I do. I love the office that we have and how we support students. So if you've not engaged with us before, feel free to come to drop-in hours, which we have every day from 10 to 3. During the summer, we'll also have a reduced set of drop-in hours that you can come to. But that's a really good first touch point if you've never been to our office before, just kind of drop in. And then you can also make appointments. So anything that we talk about today as far as letters of recommendation and recommendations in general, if you do have follow-up questions, you're welcome to reach out to me, or you can also make an appointment with your career coach on Hire a Niner. So as I told them earlier, I kind of a short presentation, and then I would love to open it up to questions, because I know some of you might be thinking about graduate school or, the first job, and how do I navigate this as far as getting these recommendations? What are some of the tricky, spots that you might have to overcome? So I'll go through the presentation, and then feel free to ask as many questions as you want, because I know we have plenty of time today. So today I'm actually going to talk about a couple of different types of recommendations that you might be looking at in the future. But tell me about, and you're welcome to turn on your mics, or you can also put it in the chat, whatever your comfort level is. But tell me about when and if you've ever been asked for professional references before, or letters of recommendation. So either turn on your mic, put it in the chat. What was the situation where you were asked to provide a professional reference? I'll look at the chat while everybody. Yes, applying to your summer research program, absolutely. Yep, college applications. Yep, scholarships. So many different uses for recommendations. Internships, yep. So we'll all need during our lifetime to provide various types of recommendations. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Continue to put your things in the chat if you'd like to, just to share with when you've had a particular reference due. But let's talk about different types of references, because there are different types, and I just want you to know sort of the nuances of each one. But usually with either jobs or internships, you will be asked for a list of professional references. And this is not something that, for instance, your reference has to do a whole write-up of you. This is mainly you just literally giving information, and I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. Usually they ask for about 3 references, but it depends on the position. It depends on how many individuals they may want to talk to about your qualifications. So I've seen some positions just do 1. I've seen others maybe do 5. So the general range, though, is about 3. So just be ready to provide at least 3 for most jobs and internships. And then letters of recommendation, and they are just a little bit different. They potentially might be for a job or internship, but usually they are for applications, as you all said, to scholarships or graduate school, or even academic job positions. So they're a little bit more formal, a little bit more work on your references part. But we'll talk about sort of the process and the etiquette behind asking for references from each of these different categories. So I'm going to start with the reference list, because a lot of people don't know how to set this up, including myself back in the day. And when you think about this, we don't want to just provide a name. We don't want to just provide an email. We want to provide all of this information to whatever we're applying to, so that the reviewer of your application can have a really good sense of who this person is and why exactly they are on your reference list. So, obviously their name, but also their position. What's the position they hold at the company or the school where they're working? What is the school or company's name? What's the city and the state, the zip code? What's their phone number? What's their professional email address? And then the part that's really helpful for the reviewer is, what was their relationship to you? Were they a supervisor? Were they a faculty member? Were they a manager? Were they a colleague? So being able to list all of these things is super helpful for people reviewing your application. So this is just an example. You can see all of this information. And for instance, if I was to reach out to Tom about a student, I would know that he was their supervisor. So I would have a little bit better of an idea of the questions to ask versus just asking random questions. Because an internship supervisor will have a very different perspective on qualifications from a faculty member, for instance. So being able to list it this way is really helpful. And Sarah, I don't mind at all, or Kirsten, not a problem at all to send you these slides if that would be helpful. So just email me after and I'll be glad to send those to you so you can send them out to the group. A little bit different are the reference letters, okay? And there are a couple different types. So there's, I've seen character reference letters, and this potentially could be, it could be actually a friend or family member. Usually that's not preferred just because they're obviously going to have a very positive spin on you. But usually if you have a colleague or a peer or a friend that works with you in a professional capacity, that's absolutely fine. But if they ask for a character reference, that's someone that really knows you well. They know you on a personal level. They're able to really help the reviewer understand your attitude, your skills, the hard work ethic that you have, that you put into things. They're able to put that personal spin on who you are and what kind of colleague you are to work with. A little bit different is a professional reference letter. So this is someone that you have worked with, someone that you've maybe done an internship with. It could be a supervisor. It could be a peer, but I highly recommend thinking about more leadership because leaders are going to have just a slight edge on a peer. Again, it's more like a friend. So think about who are these professionals that can really speak into your recommendation. And again, very much like a supervisor, manager, something like that. They're going to focus on the skills that you've been able to utilize throughout your internship or job, some of the accomplishments that you have done in both your current and former positions. So really think about who are these great managers, supervisors that you could reach out to. And then again, different is an academic reference. So you'll see an academic reference a lot for graduate schools or other types of scholarships. And even for graduate school, you're able to use a professional reference as well. But I highly recommend you have at least 2 academic references just because you're going into an academic program. So again, think about a professor who taught you as a student. You did really well in the class. You may have been that student who, sat in the front row, very engaged, whether it was asynchronous or on Zoom or in person, you were just very engaged. And so that particular faculty remembers you quite well because you were engaged and you did well in the class. So in that particular letter, they're going to focus more on your academic achievements. How did you do on your projects? How did you do on your research? How did you engage with the rest of the class? Did you participate really well? So you can see all 3 of these. And so just make sure as you're looking at different applications that you make sure you know which one of these that they're actually asking for, because they are a little bit different. So let's talk about the overall process. So the very first thing, like I just said, is determine what kind of reference you need. Do they need a reference list of just 2 to 3 contacts, no letters? Or are there actual letters of recommendation that are needed? So make sure you read the fine print. Make sure you identify the best people, okay? Who are the best individuals who can really speak highly of your skills, your abilities, your academic achievements? What I see a lot is students run into a wall of who do I ask? I've had so many faculty members. I've had, various internship supervisors. Really think through who are the best people who can write about me and speak about me, because you don't want to just ask anyone and everyone. You really want to be tailored. You also need to be very clear on the timeline of submission. So usually with references, depends on the job or internship, but usually the 2 to 3 references that you create, those are usually due when you apply to the position. The letters of recommendation are a little bit different. Just for instance, if you apply to graduate school, either letters of recommendation will come through you in a confidential way, or they will be sent through a link. So you'll actually be sending a link to your reviewers, and then the link will be, used to submit your letters of recommendation by a specific date. So really make sure you understand the timeline for each of these submissions so that you're not late. And so that also, if letters of recommendation are due, that your recommenders are very clear about when they need to get their letters in by. Super, super important. So always contact your references early, okay? And these are people who you want on that reference list, as well as people that you might want to ask a reference letter for. I had a student, I'll say by accident, include me on their reference list for something, and I get this random phone call from an employer telling me that they want my reference for this student and their internship. Well, the student had forgotten to contact me to tell me that they were actually applying to this internship. I had no idea. I had no idea what the internship was about. I had not worked very closely with a student, so I wasn't really able to give a lot of their expertise or their qualifications. And I felt very awkward, to be perfectly honest. So your references need information, okay? They need to be people who can really speak into your life. And you always want to make sure that you're reaching out early, reaching out to a reference and say, this scholarship is due next Wednesday, can you be a reference? That's a little soon. So think weeks, if not months in advance. For those of you thinking about graduate school, you have time between now and graduation and getting ready to apply for these programs to go ahead and start getting your references together and letting them know that you're interested in them being a reference. I always encourage in-person talks about this. Email is fine if that's all you can do, but all faculty, for instance, if you're wanting a faculty reference, they have drop-in hours, they have open office hours. Please go into those open office hours and just have a conversation with them so that they can best know how to write about you, how to speak about you. And then just really telling them, why are you excited? Not just, I'm applying to this psychology graduate program. Really, why are you excited about that? Why are you excited about the program, the school, what you get to study in that program, how it connects from what you've been doing here at UNCC? And then always remember to just be overly gracious. So lots of thank you notes, emails, very appreciative of their time, their effort of doing this. Because whether they're on a reference sheet and someone will be calling them for a reference, or they're taking their time to actually write a reference, they are taking time out of their busy day to do this for you. So always make sure you're following up with lots of thank yous, and that will help. So let's talk about each of the things that I would encourage you to provide to each of your references. So for instance, this is for every single thing. So for instance, if you have 3 different grad programs that you're going to, you will need to send your references 3 different versions of this information, okay? So it's a lot to keep up with, but I encourage you to do it. So whether it's a job or internship or graduate program, always send the full description to your reviewer. They have no idea, just based on what you're saying, I'm in a marketing internship, they can't assume what that means. And so make sure you're sending them the full description so they have time to review it. Make sure that if you are writing a resume and a cover letter for each of those positions or graduate school, that again, you're sending those documents to them. For graduate school, if you're writing personal statements for each of the programs, make sure you include those. And then it's always nice to include a pre-addressed stamped envelope if it will be the responsibility of the reviewer to mail in their letters of recommendation. That's just providing just additional professionalism on your part to actually provide a stamped envelope so they don't have to pay for that expense. And again, some programs, they'll provide that web link instead. And so just make sure you have the web link and it's updated and it's not broken and it gets to them in time so that they have time to submit. And then always provide the timeline for submission, because especially with faculty and even supervisors, they get really busy. And if they understand that you have a 2-week time frame, 2-month time frame, they will know that they need to get this done, and they'll hopefully put it on their calendar and finish it in a timely manner. So again, try not to wait until the last minute. Always give them plenty of time to do this. And by providing all of these things, they're going to be able to read through, understand your perspective. Why are you going in this direction? And that is going to greatly help them talk about you and also write about you. It's so much easier. Okay, so much easier when you're giving us some points about what to cover in those letters of recommendation. So here's just a quick sort of template, and I got this, it's a really good one I found on Coursera. And again, I'll send you all these slides so you can have this. But let's just, quickly review this together. So dear such and such, whoever it may be, I hope you're well. I'm in the process of applying to school or a company and want to ask you if you feel comfortable writing a strong letter of recommendation on my behalf or being part of my reference list, right? I thoroughly enjoyed my time as your student, as your intern, as my teacher or manager or supervisor. I believe you could honestly and effectively vouch for my skills, my abilities, my educational qualities that I've demonstrated during our time together. I appreciate your consideration of my request. The deadline for submitting this particular letter is whatever the date. I've attached an updated version of my resume, cover letter, personal statement, as well as the job posting or graduate program and details on how to submit the letter or or the list of recommendations. If you need any additional information, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you so much. And then always put, all of your information as well, especially with classes and professors where they've had hundreds of students in their class. Make sure that they really remember who you are. Okay, so that's really important. So that's just an example of a letter that you could send to a particular reference. So final tips before I open it up to Q&A. But again, make sure to identify your letters of recommendation, your references really early. Asking them for a reference at the last minute is not professional, puts them in a really tight spot, and most likely the letter or the phone call that they'll get from an employer may not be the best type of reference that you would actually want because they are rushed and they don't have time to do it effectively. So always do it early. Again, don't ask people to be your reference who cannot speak thoroughly to your skills, expertise, work ethic. Really think about who you know and who can positively talk about you. So important. Be confident. While it is work that your references are doing to either write or be on a phone call with a potential employer, they want to support you. Okay, so as long as you can provide them all this information, they really do want to support you. So try not to be, self-conscious or shy about going up to a faculty or a supervisor and asking them for a recommendation. Always be forthcoming and let them know that you'd really value their input. And again, always follow up with those thank you notes. That's so important. I even recommend a small gift, but that's not necessary. But thank you notes are amazing. And it just really shows how appreciative you are. So with that, I will open it up to any questions that you all have, because I know you're looking at various things and you may have questions about the type of reference that's maybe the best fit for the type of opportunity that you're hoping to apply for. Any questions from the group? Or maybe I was so thorough that you don't have any questions. I don't know. I hope I was thorough. Kirsten, did that answer questions for you? You're thinking about next steps?
I had never thought about giving a gift or anything like that. But I think
that's technically not necessary, but oh, that's super nice when it's received.
Or just sending an actual physical note rather than an email.
Mm-hmm.
I have some professors from my undergrad who've written me multiple letters. So
oh yeah.
And are still
especially if they're writing multiple. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad I was able to answer your questions, Jessica. So Claire asked the question, should a thank you letter be immediately sent or after getting feedback on the application that you needed for the recommendation? I don't think you'll be getting feedback, Claire. Usually that's confidential. So if it's a letter of recommendation, they'll usually either have a link to the school or to the job, or they'll be, mailing it in. So you actually won't usually, I mean, there are a few exceptions to this, but usually you will not get to see what the recommender said about you. So you can go ahead and immediately send the thank you note. So, and usually with portals, like I just submitted a reference letter for a student last week, and usually with the portal type submissions, both the reference as well as the student get sort of an email confirmation saying, your recommendation has come in, it's been submitted. So even that, could be a good heads up to send that thank you note once you get that email. So it's really a case-by-case basis, though. I'm not sure how every school or every company does it, but for instance, if you get just a reference list and you ask 3 to 5 people to be on a reference list, you can thank them right away because they've already agreed to whenever a phone call might come into them to do that reference check. So does that make sense? So good question. Any other questions?
Hello.
Hey, Josh.
I have some questions if you don't mind me asking.
Of course.
Yeah, I have some questions, but I think it's easier if I just explain it over to the mic.
Sure.
My first question is, you talked about timeline for when you were for asking a recommendation letter. What if I just would like to have them write something about me on my LinkedIn and for anything? Is that okay? Or
Oh, I love your question, Josh. That's something I'm going to add to the presentation. That's fantastic. So and some people may not know what you're talking about, so let me pull it up real quick. Oh, that is a great question. Give me 1 second while I find it.
yeah, it's more like, and it's nice to have faculty
Oh,
leave
absolutely.
letters under your belt when you're applying. Say you're applying in the future, you already have recommendations in your LinkedIn.
Absolutely. I'm trying to find, I found your account, Josh, and I'm trying to see on mine, it comes up right away. I'm trying to see where I click on leave a recommendation.
On LinkedIn, is it something like, other people can like verify certain skills that you have or something like that?
Yeah, so that's a little different. But no, I love that question too. I'm gonna show you my profile. Josh, your recommendations, if you have any, are not visible. So make sure that they show up if you have some. Let me show you my account, and then I'll show you, because that's such a good point.
No, it's I don't currently have any in my LinkedIn right now, but I plan to after.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. So I'll just show you how it's done down here. So you see these recommendations down here. So you can add a section to your LinkedIn profile. It's called recommendations. And again, this is such a great point. I'm totally adding this to this presentation. But these are recommendations I have received from colleagues and my supervisor. And then these are recommendations that I've given. So all you have to do is when you go into your recommendations, you can actually go into, like I've recommended Harris here. I could go into his profile and just click on the little plus sign and I could recommend him. So there's not really a timeline per se that an employer or a faculty member is supposed to come in here. This would be a great question though, like to go to their office hours and say, you know, I'm about to start applying to graduate schools. Would you not only write me a letter of recommendation professionally that will be sent to, you know, either graduate school or an organization, but could you take components of that letter and actually recommend me on LinkedIn? LinkedIn recommendations are fantastic. They're very casual compared to the formal recommendations that you'll be doing for more of a position. Does that make sense? And again, recommendations can come from anyone. These could be friends, these could be family members, these could be, you know, colleagues and peers, as well as your supervisors, faculty, but they don't have to be as long and they don't have to be as specific to like the job or the graduate program that you're trying to apply to. They can be a little bit more general. Does that make sense?
Yes, that helped answer my question.
Good.
But I wanted to ask a little more in depth.
Sure.
What about if I ask say my mentor for my research for just a recommendation on my LinkedIn, but say a few years down the road I'm applying for grad school, would that still be okay to still apply to that same person and then ask for a formal recommendation letter?
You have to ask yourself, if it's been several years, can they still speak to your skills and abilities as they could years ago? Are they the best contact you have to do that? Maybe if you've kept up with them, if they've, you know, kept up with you, they know sort of where you are in life, what you're doing, potentially. But if, you know, if it's been 2, 3, 4 years and they've lost touch, it's not that they can't recommend you, but do they remember you well enough to actually do a solid recommendation. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So it's not wrong. I mean, you can definitely reach out to them, but just make sure that they're the best person to reach out. Part of it also, Josh, is when either they get a letter of recommendation, or an employer calls them and they say, what was your association with this student? If I say something like, well, I taught Josh 4 years ago, they're gonna be like, ooh, that's kind of old. Why didn't Josh provide like a this year kind of reference or last year kind of reference? So again, there's nothing wrong with it, especially if you've kept up with them. Maybe you continue to be colleagues. Like I left a former university almost 7 years ago this month. And I still am connected to a few of my colleagues there. So potentially I could have them write a letter of recommendation for me because we're still connected, right? We still talk, we still see each other at conferences. They still know what I'm up to. I know what they're up to. So that's different. But if you really have lost connection, I would probably say try to find someone who's more recent.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I do have a second question.
Sure.
So part of my plan post-graduation is going to get my master's. And there are some professors that I did well in their courses in, but can they still be a reference for a particular graduate program that is a little bit different, for a particular concentration that's different for what they've taught as well?
They could. Yeah, just make sure that they're fully aware of the program, like I said, that you're applying to. Make sure, because they can speak more to just the concentration that you've studied. They can speak to your study habits, your professionalism, your work ethic in their class. That's what really the school wants to know about. The concentration, I mean, you have faculty from all different disciplines, so that's very common, but just really make sure that they understand what kind of program you're actually wanting to get into, so that if they need to speak to that you would be a good fit for that program, that they would be able to speak to that directly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
You can use any faculty though. They don't have to technically be related to the program you're entering into, but yeah, just make sure you did well in their class for sure.
Oh yeah, of course.
I've had students use references of faculty that they did not do well in their class. I'm like, oh no, that's not good. That's not good. I had someone, and again, this is just, you don't do this, but I've had students do this. I used to supervise several interns in various roles that I've had at the university, and I've only had to let one student go in my entire time of supervising undergraduate students, and it wasn't for anything horrible, but I did have to let her go. And it was probably 6 months after that, when I let her go, that she asked me for a recommendation. And I was just like, no, I'm sorry. Find someone that you didn't, you actually succeeded in whatever you were pursuing. But yeah, you have to be very strategic. And I'll tell you a really, really challenging story. This hopefully is something that no one will ever face. Okay, I never want any of you all to face this. My best friend was getting her PhD in English from a college up north, and she was very close to her committee where she was finalizing her dissertation. My friend is extremely smart. She won the dissertation award, like Distinguished Dissertation Award. She wanted to be an English faculty member, in college. And she asked her 3 committee members. She asked them, she did not, she knows now, but she should have really talked to them more about what she wanted to do post-grad. She just basically asked them for letters of recommendation, trusted that they would write a positive review. And this committee member decided, for whatever reason, still to this day, I have no idea why, did not give her a glowing recommendation. And to this day, my friend cannot work in higher ed. She graduated almost 7 years ago and has not been able to work as a professor, because to work as a professor in higher ed, you have to have glowing recommendations from your graduate program. And so she doesn't. And it's a very, very unfortunate situation. And she has learned a lot from this really challenging experience. She loves what she does now. She works in a different field, but she missed that opportunity to actually pursue the career she wanted to pursue, because one of her references, she did not do due diligence to actually get to help them understand what she really wanted to do. And so they didn't know how to refer her well. Does that make sense? And it's such a shame, because I don't think she'll ever have the opportunity to work in higher ed, even though that's what she spent 12 years of her life getting multiple degrees to do. So please take this seriously. That's my point. Again, I never want you to have that situation, but please take this seriously. Make sure you know who your recommenders are. Make sure that they can speak really highly of you, because the last thing you want is someone who, for whatever reason, had a bad experience or bias of some sort, and they cannot speak to your skills and abilities. So horrible story that none of you will experience. So someone earlier asked about when you can endorse people for skills. So I want to quickly show that as well on LinkedIn. So this will come up all the time. So on your LinkedIn, you can choose the skills that show up as your top 3, but you can also, you can list as many skills as you want to, and then just showcase like, which ones do I really want to pop up? But you'll see that when each of these skills are put into your profile, different people can endorse you for them. Now, do faculty and employers take this extremely seriously? No, not really. It's a nice added bonus to LinkedIn. It's kind of fun to see. But for instance, 2 people have endorsed me for social media, yet I used to be the director of marketing and I did social media every day. So does 2 endorsements showcase my ability to do social media? No. Does my entire experience section showcase my ability to do that? Yes. And then I'll have endorsements for other things, and I'm like, oh, I wonder. Yes, I do a lot of events. I don't do a ton of research like you guys, so it's like, wow, I have 5 endorsements for research. That's fun. I don't even really do research, but that's neat. So it's not extremely telling of your skill set, but it is nice, it is helpful. And if people are starting to endorse you for some of your skills, it's just nice to pay it forward and to endorse them back. And same thing, as Josh mentioned about the LinkedIn reviews. If someone does recommend you on LinkedIn, highly recommend that you recommend them right back, because that's just, again, paying it forward. Even if it's a faculty member, recommend them, praise them for the amazing teacher they are, or an amazing supervisor. So it's really just good etiquette to be able to give back in that way. Does that make sense? Great questions, Josh. Thanks for sharing those things.
Thanks for the information. It's actually helpful.
Totally adding that to the presentation, though. That was great feedback. Any other questions about references, letters, etiquette? And again, I'll be glad to send this to one of you. Just let me know who. And I'll be glad to send the slides so that you can send it out to the group.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Actually, let me pull up an email real quick and put your email in.
And we post all of the professional development workshops on the OUR YouTube. So any students
awesome.
who are able to come, they can come and watch.
Oh, that's wonderful. Very cool.
I'm sorry, what's the YouTube link?
It's on the OUR website. So if you go to the Office of Undergraduate Research, you go to Get Researching. It's under Professional Development Series. There's a little link that says sessions are open to all students. Want to watch the presentations? Click here. But I can drop it in the chat too.
I don't know if anyone's into the banking industry, but Fidelity will be with us all day today in the Career Center for both recruiting tables, professional help, as well as a panel this afternoon at 4 p.m. So if anyone is interested in technology, banking, management, things like that, definitely join us. This is kind of an interesting experience that they're going to be in our office all day instead of just coming to a career fair. So. And then we do have our education career fair coming up for anyone interested in education. So that will be, what day is that? It's on a Monday. I don't remember what date that's on. It is on April 24th. So if anyone is interested in education, and we actually have some graduate schools that will participate in that fair, as well as nonprofits that always come. So definitely check that out if you're interested. And you can see the whole list of different schools that will be in attendance on our Career Center website. All right. Oh, sorry. Let me read one more comment here. Let's see. Yeah, so Elliot, if this is part of a class assignment, I'll be sending data to Dr. Jiang, and so you don't have to do anything. You're welcome to take a screenshot if that helps you feel good. But nope, she'll get all the data of every student who's attended a career meetup this semester. So you are good to go.
Quinn also asked, what if you're applying for multiple positions? How would you apply? How would you ask for recommendations? Just update them every time you apply for something different?
Yeah, so let's look at both. So you have a reference sheet. You know, you're putting the information for employers, like 3 to 5 references that employers usually will call if you get through the interview rounds. That is another thing I didn't mention earlier, is an employer will not call your references unless they are like in that final stage of offering you the position. Okay, so you've gone through interviews, you're in the final round. That's when they call references. So if you are applying to, let's say, 5 to 10 different jobs, you have to let those references know about those 5 to 10 different jobs. So again, sending your tailored resumes to each of those positions, sending the job descriptions of each of those positions. Because if you tell them about just one of them, kind of like Fidelity will be here today. Well, I applied to Fidelity, but then Bank of America calls me and I'm like, oh, I didn't know they applied to Bank of America. I'm caught off guard as a reference. And it's just, yeah, it's not professional on your part, not professional. I don't sound professional talking about you if I don't even know what you've applied to. So always be over communicative with your references about what you're applying to. It is, and another tricky thing is if you are going to apply to multiple graduate schools, for instance, let's say you're going to apply to 10 different graduate schools, spreading your net wide. It probably is not great if you ask a faculty member to write 10 different letters of recommendation. Okay, you might need to divide and conquer a bit. You need to, think about who are more than just 3 faculty or supervisors who could recommend you, so that you can sort of divide up the different applications, if that makes sense. Even though it depends on the program. They sometimes can use very similar letters, so it may not be that big a deal, but they do need to be fully aware of the program, where to send it, timeline, and that can get tricky if it's more than just a couple. So just be aware of that too. Good question. All right, I'll make sure I've got everything in the chat here. Any final questions? Well, you all have been a great group, and I just appreciate all the questions. And feel free to just drop in if you do have follow-up thoughts, questions, ideas. You just need additional assistance. Our office does review resumes, cover letters, personal statements. So as you are getting your applications ready for either positions or graduate school, just know that we're here to support you with that. We're happy to review references as well. We can't do much about it, but we're happy to review your structure of a reference sheet. We cannot review letters of recommendation because that's just private between the faculty or supervisor and the school. But we can review pretty much everything else. So feel free to just drop in with those. And again, our drop-in hours are from 10 to 3 every day. So, well, thank you all so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day. And Kirsten, I'll follow up with the PowerPoint slides, okay?
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. For all OUR people, if y'all could stay on for just a second. Just real quick, I wanted to mention that I'm gonna stop recording.